Chris Collinsworth, Sunday Night Football. It'll be the Colts and Cowboys coming up on Sunday Night Football. Chris with Mike Tirico. We making a bigger deal about Russell Wilson with teammates not attending his birthday party here, Chris? Is silly story?
Man, I guess he got half of them to come. And, if I got a tenth of them to come to my party, I'd feel good about it. If you showed up, I'd feel good. Just the two of us. We, flash back to Dayton and tell old stories about, the glory days and maybe play a one-on-one basketball game for about 30 seconds. And then we would both pass out and go have a coffee somewhere.
Is this a big deal?
Losing's a big deal. Right. I mean, let's be honest. We saw it with the Jets, right? I mean, it doesn't matter who the quarterback is. If you're not scoring points, I've had that look before. I've had that look where our offense is struggling and you're running off the field because you run right past the defensive guys, right? And they're all looking at you like, are you guys ever going to score a point today? Because we're out here killing ourselves and you guys aren't holding up your share of it. And that happens even inside a single game sometimes. But when you're a free agent or you're a new guy, you get paid all the money, you're brought into the locker room. He asked them to give up their days off so he could go present to the offense his version of the team that they were about to play. They all showed up for all that stuff. And at some point, your offense continues to struggle. It's just a natural part of if you are the leader of something and it's not going well, it's going to get ugly. I mean, it does. It's just the way that it is running PFF. When I make a bad decision, I get the guys look at me and they go, "What are you doing?" Right. So it's a natural part of leadership. Russ is Mr. Enthusiastic all the time and let's ride and all that stuff. And it's fantastic when you're in the playoffs and you're going to Super Bowls. But when it's the opposite, yeah, you're going to get that look.
Is Kyler Murray getting that treatment now because they're not winning? Is he a leader? Is he the face of this franchise? Is Cliff Kingsbury the coach? How long is he going to be the coach?
The Patrick Peterson thing didn't help, right? And Patrick is a pretty straight shooter. He obviously didn't like the way that he had to depart Arizona. There's a little bitterness there, so you factor that in.
Yeah.
But you also factor in that he probably told us the truth. Didn't you feel like, I've known Patrick a long time and we always interviewed he and Larry Fitzgerald. There was always the straight shooters there. And Bruce Arians, when he was there, was fantastic too. I was like, there are sometimes you go into those production meetings and you're like, this is going to be a 0. We're not going to get anything. But with Arizona, you got the truth. And so I think that, it was probably, at least in his opinion, a true statement. And so then, I think everybody has to look inside themselves. That Arizona situation is not in a great position right now. You extend the coach and the GM and the Kyler now is going through it. And you're not winning the games and you've fallen off at the end of seasons for the last few years. So yeah, they need an opposite this year, right? They need, not so good during the regular season and tear it up at the end of the year and somehow make the playoffs.
What would you do if you were running the Packers?
We came so close to getting into this on the air the other night, but the game never got away. The game stayed close. I think I would talk to Aaron about whether or not he was ready to sit down for a little while. Not because he is a mess physically. We know, what I know about the thumb, whatever the term was, where the bone actually tears away with the ligament, whatever. That is awful. And you could tell that's been bothering him. I saw him throw non-spirals in the game before the Eagles game in a way that I've never seen before. And then, now he's got the oblique injury on top of that. And you saw Jordan Love come in and sling it, and sling it. So the Packers organization, the likelihood of them now making the playoffs, probably not great, but the likelihood of they have to make some really tough decisions this offseason, whether it pertains to Aaron, whether it pertains to Jordan Love. I mean, nobody knows this decision more than the Green Bay Packers. We understand that with Brett. And it could play out that way. I mean, it wouldn't even be stunning to see Aaron Rodgers go play for the New York Jets or the Patriots or San Francisco. We're going to see some weird stuff this offseason, like we did last offseason at the quarterback position. But if I really gave you what I thought, I think I would say for the Packers to run it back. And it's going to be really hard for them to do that. Guys like Bakhtiari are going to get a ton of money if they stay. There are a lot of older veteran guys, but, this was a weird offseason. Aaron wasn't around. He didn't work with those young receivers. There was the pressure of trying to impress Aaron Rodgers, who was frustrated early on, dropping the first pass of the season. There were a lot of weird things that happened. But I do think that it's entirely possible this defense could play up to it next year and Aaron could play up to it. I mean, you don't go from two-time MVP to not being able to play and execute an offense anymore. And I've seen a lot of teams have bad years and get refocused, start working harder, spend more time together, and come back the next year and have a great year. And I think that's entirely possible if the Green Bay Packers ran it back.
Sunday Night Football will be the Colts and the Cowboys on NBC. Your biggest concern about the Cowboys heading towards the end of the regular season and the postseason is what?
Probably if they lost one of these receivers. CD, I think, has been fantastic. And now that he's back in the slot, he's a really legitimate tough guy in there, blocks, does the whole thing. I really like him as a player, but the return of Michael Gallup has probably meant the most to him, that Michael Gallup now can sit out there at that X position, create some deep balls, 3 great contested catches in that game against the Giants. When Michael Gallup can handle that position, when he can force you, if you want to play single high and one-on-one on the outside, and he's going to go up and win those jump balls, that's when this team's great. But for Dak Prescott, I think the change they made in the offense, putting him back under center so that the hard play action stuff off of their running game creates opportunities for big plays down the field. I thought that was the singular sort of jumping off point that kind of turned this offense around. So I don't have a lot of concerns, although I will say one thing. I think that the Giants, even though they got beaten that game, the Giants are a physical monster of a D-line and of a team. I mean, they beat up this offensive line to some extent on the inside. So if Tyron Smith can come back, Tyler Smith move back into the left guard position, I think the Cowboys are going to be well positioned late in the year to get better and better and have a real shot at this thing.
Any downside to bringing in OBJ?
Of course, cure-alls sometimes can blow up, but I like OBJ. And then he has the incident on the airplane. What does that mean? What does that not mean? I have no idea. But he's a different guy when you talk to him than when you read his social media. I mean, he is a thoughtful, sort of God-fearing, he's a really interesting guy. And I think the guys on that team would really like him, and he would slide in there. That's really that third receiver position is kind of what they're missing. We saw what happened when he was able to draw coverage when he went into the Rams organization, especially when he was really healthy at the end of the year. And if the Cowboys are going to win it all, I'm not sure they're winning it all with this 2 and 3 tight end formation as a constant Yes, as a change up with their running game, fantastic, love it. It looked good, all those sort of things. But there's going to come a time in those playoffs when they need 3 wideouts. They can go 11 personnel. They can spread it out. And now we're going to do CD and Michael. And now here comes Odell as the number 3. That's a different story if he's right. I mean, you got to see him. I have no idea. Can he run? Can he cut? Can he do the things? Is he going to be a little bit nervous on the knee after a couple of surgeries? I don't know.
Good to talk to you as always. We'll be watching on Sunday night, Chris.
I love seeing you and Bobby Knight in the same sweater in one shot. That's it's a cool thing.
Thank you, bud. That's Chris Collinsworth, Sunday Night Football with Mike Tirico in the booth. Colts Cowboys at Sunday night on NBC and Peacock.